Ruth Patterson is 64 years old. She spent 37 years as a registered nurse, most of them at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, the last 12 at Regions Hospital in St. Paul. She retired in June of 2024. She did everything right. The house was paid off. The IRA was diversified. The brokerage account was on autopilot. Then her husband Frank was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's at 65. By November, Frank needed memory care, $9,200 a month, and Ruth thought she was prepared. 2 years before Frank's diagnosis, Ruth sat down with an eldercare attorney in Minneapolis. She paid him $800 for the consultation. He looked at the family balance sheet and gave her one piece of advice. He said, "Just transfer the house to your daughter Sarah. That way, if you ever need Medicaid, the house is protected." Ruth did exactly what he said. She signed the quitclaim deed in December of 2024. What that attorney never told Ruth, what most attorneys never tell their clients, is that Medicaid has a 60-month lookback rule. Every dollar you transfer in the 5 years before applying for Medicaid is counted against you. The state divides your transferred assets by the average monthly cost of care in your state, and that becomes your penalty period. Ruth's penalty period, based on Minnesota's $11,100 divisor and her $385,000 home transfer, was 34.7 months. Frank needed care immediately. Medicaid would not pay for the first 34 months. Ruth was forced to drain the IRA at single-filer tax rates, watch the brokerage account collapse to cover the gap, and now, after Frank passes, Minnesota's Medicaid Estate Recovery Program will come for what's left of the house. In the next 14 minutes, I'm going to walk you through the 5 assets every retiree must lock down before age 65. The home, the IRA, the brokerage, the cash value life insurance, and the bank accounts, and the specific legal instruments that protect each one. Most retirees do not know these tools exist. By the time they need them, the 60-month window has closed. My name is Robert, your guide to honest retirement tax strategy. Before we go on, drop your state in the comments. Just the abbreviation. Medicaid rules vary by state, and I read every single comment. We build the analysis together. And if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe. I'm releasing a new retirement tax video every 2 days. The next one covers state-specific Medicaid asset limits. Here's what I'm going to cover. First, what the Medicaid Estate Recovery Program actually does, the federal law behind it, and why every single state is required to come after your assets. Second, the 5-asset lock plan: home, IRA, brokerage, life insurance, bank cash, in that order, with the specific legal instrument for each. Third, the 60-month window, why age 65 is the deadline, and what Ruth Patterson should have done in 2023 instead of 2024. Let's start with what MERP actually is. The Medicaid Estate Recovery Program was created in 1993 by the Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, codified at 42 U.S.C. Section 1396P, subsection B. The law is not optional. It says the state shall seek adjustment or recovery, shall, not may, for Medicaid benefits paid on behalf of any individual aged 55 or older. All 50 states plus the District of Columbia operate a MERP. There are no exceptions. Here's how it works. While you're alive, Medicaid pays for your long-term care if you qualify. After you die, the state files a claim against your estate to recover what it paid out. The biggest target, by far, is the family home. The home is exempt while you're alive, up to a $730,000 equity cap in most states, or $1.097 million in 15 high-cost states like California, New York, and Massachusetts. But the moment the Medicaid recipient dies, the home becomes recoverable. That is the trap. The home is protected during your lifetime, so most retirees think it is safe. It is not safe. It is just timed differently. Now, the 5 assets. We're going to go through them in order of MERP exposure, starting with the biggest target. Asset 1 of 5, the family home. This is where MERP gets 60 to 70% of its recovery dollars. There are 3 legal instruments that protect a home from estate recovery, and they work differently depending on what state you live in. The first is the Ladybird deed, technically called an enhanced life estate deed. It lets you keep full control of your home during your lifetime, and the home passes automatically to your named beneficiaries at death without going through probate. Because it never enters your probate estate, MERP cannot reach it in most states. The catch: Ladybird deeds are only recognized in 5 states: Texas, Florida, Michigan, Ohio, and Vermont. West Virginia recently joined as a 6th. If you live anywhere else, the Ladybird deed is not an option. The second is the Irrevocable Income-Only Trust, sometimes called an IIOT. You transfer the home into the trust. You retain the right to live in it for life and to receive any income it generates, but you give up the right to revoke the trust or sell the property without trustee consent. Because you no longer technically own the home, it is not in your estate at death. MERP cannot reach it, but only if the trust was funded at least 60 months before you applied for Medicaid. That 60-month rule is the entire game. We will come back to it. The third is a traditional life estate deed. You deed the home to your children today, but retain the right to live there for the rest of your life. The remainder passes automatically. The problem: life estate deeds. In some states are still considered transfers that trigger the 60-month lookback, and they remove control. Once you sign it, you cannot sell the house without your children's signatures. Ruth Patterson did none of these 3. She did a plain quitclaim deed, the simplest, fastest, worst option. It triggered the lookback immediately and gave her 0 retained protection. Asset 2 of 5, the traditional IRA, the 401k, the 403b, the pre-tax retirement accounts. This is where state law matters enormously. About 13 states, including California, Florida, Texas, New York, Illinois, and Michigan, exempt the IRA from Medicaid countable resources as long as it is in required minimum distribution payout status. The other 37 states count the full balance as a resource. If you live in a counting state, every dollar in the IRA counts against the $2,000 single applicant asset limit. There is one federal safe harbor strategy that works in every state. It is called a Medicaid-compliant annuity, codified at 42 U.S.C. Section 1396P, subsection C, paragraph 1, item F. The annuity must be irrevocable, non-assignable, actuarially sound under the Social Security Administration's life expectancy tables, and it must name the state Medicaid agency as the primary remainder beneficiary up to the amount of benefits paid. Here is what that means in practice. The community spouse, the spouse who is not in the nursing home, can take the couple's countable IRA balance and roll it into a Medicaid-compliant annuity. The annuity converts a countable resource into an income stream that legally belongs to the community spouse. The institutionalized spouse becomes immediately eligible. After the community spouse dies, the state recovers any remaining annuity balance up to what Medicaid paid out. Everything beyond that goes to the family. Ruth Patterson did not do this. Her IRA, $510,000 at retirement, was drained at single-filer tax rates during Frank's penalty period. Asset 3 of 5, the taxable brokerage account, non-qualified investments, mutual funds, ETFs, individual stocks held outside a retirement wrapper. These are fully countable Medicaid resources in every state. There is no exempt while alive carve-out. There is no payout status exception. If you have $100,000 in a Vanguard brokerage account on the day you apply for Medicaid, that $100,000 counts. The instrument here is the Medicaid Asset Protection Trust, or MAPT. It is an irrevocable trust drafted under your state's law. You transfer the brokerage assets into the trust, name your children or a third party as trustee, and lose direct control. The trust holds the assets. The trust's grantor, usually still you, retains certain limited rights like the right to income or the right to use property, but cannot revoke or distribute principal to yourself. The 60-month lookback applies in full. If you fund the MAPT 48 months before applying for Medicaid, every dollar still counts. 61 months before, 5 years and 1 month, is the magic threshold. The entire trust becomes invisible to Medicaid. If the MAPT is drafted as a grantor trust under IRC Section 2036, your heirs still receive a full step-up in basis at your death. You shield from Medicaid but preserve the tax benefit. The drafting language controls everything. Consult an elder law attorney in your state. Do not download a template. Asset 4 of 5. Cash value life insurance. Whole life, universal life, and most permanent policies build up a cash surrender value that grows tax-deferred. To Medicaid, that cash value is a countable resource the moment the policy's face value exceeds a state-specific threshold. In most states, the face value limit is $1,500. In New York, it is $2,500. If your whole life policy has a $50,000 face value, which is a small policy, and a $15,000 cash surrender value, the entire $15,000 is countable. 2 options. First, surrender the policy and convert the cash value to an irrevocable burial trust, which is fully exempt in most states up to $15,000. Second, transfer ownership of the policy into an irrevocable life insurance trust, an ILIT, and let the trust pay future premiums. Important, the ILIT has its own 3-year clock under IRC Section 2035 for estate tax, but the Medicaid clock is still 60 months. You must clear both. If you have a permanent life insurance policy and you are inside 10 years of likely care need, this is a high-priority conversation with your estate planner. Asset 5 of 5. Bank accounts. Checking, savings, money market, certificates of deposit, liquid cash. The federal Medicaid asset limit for a single applicant is $2,000 in most states. California eliminated its asset limit on January 1, 2024. No cap. New York's limit is $32,396 in 2026. Everywhere else, $2,000 is the line. For married couples where one spouse needs care, the rules change. The community spouse can keep what is called the Community Spouse Resource Allowance, the CSRA. In 2026, the federal maximum CSRA is $157,920. The community spouse also keeps a monthly maintenance needs allowance, up to $3,948 per month of joint income. The strategy is 2-part. First, do not transfer cash to children. That triggers the lookback. Instead, spend it down on permitted categories, paying off the mortgage, prepaying funeral and burial up to $15,000, buying medical equipment, home modifications for the community spouse, paying off legitimate debt. None of these trigger the lookback because you are not transferring assets. You are converting them into exempt forms. Second, time it. Too early, you lose cash you may need yourself. Too late, it does not finish before Medicaid is needed. The right window is typically 12 to 24 months after a serious diagnosis, but before institutionalization. Now, the 60-month window. Why age 65? The Medicaid lookback under federal law is 60 months from the date of application. If you apply at age 70 and you transferred your home at 65, you are clear. If you transferred at 66, you are inside the lookback and the entire transfer is counted against you. 70% of Americans turning 65 today will need some form of long-term care during their lifetime. The average length of a nursing home stay is between 2 and 3 years. Memory care averages 2 to 4. The median age of Medicaid long-term care application is 76. Work that math backward. 65 is the deadline to start the 60-month clock. If Ruth had walked into a competent elder law attorney in 2022 at age 62, here is what should have happened. The home goes into an irrevocable income-only trust in 2022. The clock starts. The brokerage goes into a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust the same year. The whole life policy is transferred to an ILIT. The bank accounts get spent down through prepaid funeral, mortgage payoff, and home modifications in 2025. And when Frank's diagnosis arrives, the IRA converts to a Medicaid-compliant annuity for Ruth, a federal safe harbor, no look-back. The entire estate becomes invisible to Medicaid except for the CSRA allowance and the MCA income stream. Frank qualifies immediately. The IRA is preserved. The home is preserved. The brokerage compounds tax-free. Lifetime savings, approximately $400,000 to $700,000 depending on Frank's length of care. Instead, Ruth did one quick quit-claim deed in 2024. She lost the clock. She lost the IRA. She is losing the house. The window closes when one spouse is diagnosed. Roth conversions require 5 to 7 years to phase. Pension elections become irrevocable after the first payment. Life insurance underwriting requires reasonable health. Trust restructuring requires legal capacity. If one spouse receives a serious diagnosis, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, terminal cancer, half of these tools become unavailable overnight. The diagnosis itself does not just create the need for care, it eliminates the legal options that would have prevented the need. That is why this work happens at 62, 63, 64, not at 70, not after the diagnosis. Here is what to do this week. Step 1. Find an elder law attorney licensed in your state, not a generic estate planning attorney, an elder law specialist who handles Medicaid planning weekly. The National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys at naela.org has a search tool. Step 2. Inventory the 5 asset categories: home value, retirement balance, brokerage balance, life insurance face value plus cash value, total liquid cash. Step 3. Calculate your 60-month timeline. From today, count out 61 months. That is the date by which any irrevocable trust must be funded if you want it invisible to Medicaid. Step 4. Pick 1 or 2 instruments to implement first, not all 5. The home is usually highest priority. The bank account spend down is usually last. If this video helped you, do me one favor. Send it to one married couple in their early 60s, today. 800,000 widows fall into the Medicaid estate recovery trap every single year in America. The information you just heard is in the federal statute, in plain sight. Most people never see it because no one tells them. Hit subscribe. The next video is about how 7 specific states changed their Medicaid asset rules for 2026. I will see you there.